Also, we'll be live streaming this event to YouTube and as similar to like all of our other events. So of course, if there's anything that we mention in this meeting, you can always go back to our channel to watch again or even watch our previous events for Google Summer Code as well as Demo Day or Color Day. So please stay with us. We only have 2 more minutes to go and then we'll begin.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Could you please type in the chat if you're able to hear me?
All right, good day, everyone. We are about to begin. So firstly, I thank you for coming, everyone. Today, it's all about Google Summer of Code, and open source projects that you may can contribute towards. Of course, there's some disclaimer as, for example, Google Summer of Code, the organizations that are going to contribute to Google Summer of Code this year has not been published. So what we're going to be doing in this session is to take a look at some of the organizations that applied last year, which is most likely will apply this year again. But I definitely want to just go through and show some of the project students worked on and what you could work on this. Hello. All right, so quick introduction. I'm Oshin Bailey. I'm the co-founder of Jamaican Developers Community as well as also Limited. On this call, there is Latifah Smelly. She is the communication officer for Jamaican developers community. But I will be mostly, presenting on this topic. A little bit about me, if you don't know, I'm a former student of Google Summer Code. I did Google Summer Code in 2017 and became did mentored in 2018. And after 2018, I've been trying to push Google Summer Code, get more students involved in open source, in going through the program and experiencing some of the environment, the community, and all of this contribution to open source and all the benefits it comes with. So I hope this event will be very insightful, and for those of you who are interested, and even interested, you get a lot of interest to partake in this year Google Summer of Code. One more thing I should also mention, Google Summer Code this year has opened its door to not just students, but also anyone above 18. So individuals that are not in university and is above 18, they can also apply for Google Summer Code and contribute to open source. All right. So we started in the presentation. Done. So what is Google Summer Code? Google Summer Code is an international program designed to encourage participation in open source. It's fully remote. You don't have to go to the Google headquarters. You don't, even though going to Google headquarters would have been like fantastic for many. But you can stay at your home or anywhere and participate. It's pretty much like having an internship, but it's fully remote. You get to communicate, contribute to open source, and communicate with like various individuals across the globe. Like for example, the open source organization that I contributed back in 2017 was the Prone Foundation. And the Prone Foundation scattered, like community members are scattered all across the globe. So sometimes I would be, coding, pushing code, communicating with individuals from Japan, Germany, US, Canada, and so forth. So it really helps you to build a really strong bond, and it strengthens your or coding style and how you tend to contribute to a large software ecosystem. One of the benefits that I found in Google Summer Code, it helped me to prepare for the working world and helped me to prepare for, working on a large team and understanding the whole framework of, project management, working with other individuals, collaborating, ensuring that when I push code, my code works, it doesn't break anyone else's code and so forth. So you get that full understanding that, okay, it's not a full-fledged software. It's not like a one-man army. It takes a team to really build something that a lot of individuals can use across the globe. And this is one of the benefits for you to, try to participate in Google Summer Code. Not to mention, it's a really great addition to your resume if you're a student or if you're young in the tech industry. All right, so open source. It's a word that it's two words that we hear quite a lot. Many of us who are experienced know what open source is, but for those who don't know, it's pretty much source code that are freely available for possible modification and redistribution. Of course, There are different type of licensing like MIT, Apache, and so forth that will do some form of restriction to to how you can distribute or how you can use it, but generally it's free to use and free to modify. Many of us are using open source. Many of us worked on open source without even knowing. Majority of the companies in the world tend to use open source. You probably use browsers like Firefox, some form of Chromium browser like pretty much Chromium and Linux, which is pretty much open source. Microsoft Edge is kind of open source as well. There's Apache, MySQL, Java, WordPress, and many open source software. Node.js, all of these languages that we are also using in our daily life to develop whichever application, program, or so forth. They tend to be open source, a solution that you can also contribute to. Most of these software tend to be hosted on an open source repository platform like GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. And we can take a look at those today and see some of the projects that were contributed to last year and how active it was on some of these platforms. So, all right. So I gave a rough, rundown of what open source is and what Google Summer of Code is, but I do want to find out, with a raise of hand, how much of you in here have contributed to open source before? Can you just use the raise hand button in that's right beside the chat? Okay, let me run a quick poll instead. Give me a moment. All right, so you can indicate in the poll how much of you have contributed to open source before. You should see it up. Oh, wow. Most 89% thus far have indicated no. That's quite interesting. 82. All right. Okay. Now it's looking a bit better. 25 indicated yes, 75 indicated no. All right, so that's quite interesting. All right, so in that case, we are definitely going to look at even doing a minor contribution to open source projects in this, just to show that it's pretty easy, it's pretty like cool thing to do, and it helps to build your knowledge. But before we do that, I do want to just go to Google Summer of Code website and walk you through where you would find the organizations and things that you can participate in. So please note, Google is pretty much rebuilding their Google Summer of Code website. But it's pretty still functional. It's easier to navigate than last year. And they're cleaning up a lot of strategies. They changed quite a lot this year. in terms of, for example, the type of projects that they are going to add to the project. There's like three type of project, like a flexible type of open source contribution project that you can work around if you know in school. It helps you to contribute when you can, and it's have a longer timeline. There's like more difficult open source projects that takes a lot more work to contribute to and write code and commit code. And then there are smaller projects that entry level developers can participate in. So they've changed it to accommodate more individual. But I will not necessarily get into all of that today. Stephanie Taylor, which is the program manager of Google Summer of Code, will give an information session next week, Thursday, I believe, which is the 3rd of March. All right, so on Google Summer of Code website, you see quite a lot of information, and I'll drop this in the chat so you can check it out on your own time. Okay, someone asked a question. Okay, all right. So Google, this is pretty much Google Summer of Code website. You see quite a lot of information about open source organization, and open source organizations are pretty much the organization that tend to monitor and manage these open source software. So for example, Python, which is a programming language that one of the famous programming language that's managed by the Python Foundation. Prone, which is an enterprise CMS software, is managed by the Prone Foundation. Apache, which is a web server that's managed by Apache Foundation. There's open source project that Google put out, Microsoft, and so forth. But they tend to announce it quite a lot. So there's a lot of open source projects out there and organizations that you can contribute to based on your interest, based on your preferred language, or so forth. If you're in game development, there's also open source projects that you can contribute to if you're in game development. And we'll take a look at that shortly. But yes, all of the information that you need it's pretty much on their website, so you can browse around. But what I'm going to do, as mentioned before, is take a look at previous years and some of the projects that they've done. So you can, when you click on the hamburger menu, you see past programs, and all of their past programs are listed here. 2017, as I mentioned, that's when I did mine, but I'll definitely look at 2021 first. And of course, like I said, they redesigned their website a bit, so it's a bit it's more structured and easier to find open source projects. Or give me a minute. All right. Easier to find open source projects. So let's say we want to look for Python projects, right? We can easily type in Python right here. Of course, there's the Python Foundation that tends to post a lot of projects. So sometimes like a organization, like Python Foundation, it's practically always a part of Google Summer of Code. And there are a lot of open source organization and projects that tend to apply for Google Summer of Code itself, but sometimes they will not get through to Google Summer of Code. So what they end up doing is go through the Python Foundation instead of going directly to Google Summer of Code. So that's so if there's a project that you wanted to contribute to previously to like Google Summer of Code, and you don't see them on the list, you can also, check the Python Foundation or whichever language fall on that that software is fall under. So like this is pretty much Python foundation software. So there are a couple of contributors there, and you can see like the projects and what they contributed to. So for example, if I look at this individual and their project details, so they work on the backend for Tensorflow algorithm, which is like a compiler. I would definitely say compiler tend to be a more of a difficult project. But it's sometimes based on the project, it's easy to it might sound difficult, but it's actually easy. And the community that manage that project tend to make things a bit easier for the developer, because you go on a project, you may not know everything about the language, you may not know everything about the project. It's probably the first time you've seen or heard about the project. So what they tend to do is give you a lot of documentation, a lot of support. You can contact them throughout the day, night, whenever, and someone will reply to you. They tend to be like 2 to 3 mentors assigned, and you can pick those mentor brains to understand how you should develop your software. So this guy, this is a TensorFlow project. Let me see if I can find the TensorFlow project on GitHub. So this is pretty much the project which is Taco. And it has a lot of commits to 2,712 commits. It gives you like a lot of guide on how to set up, how to develop, how to contribute, how to run tests, and so forth. Most of the projects for Google Summer Code tend to be like this. So you can take a look at like previous previous projects from now, see what other people worked on, how they build it out, and how they built it out, and some of the code changes that they made. I'm looking for a easy. Okay, this one is improve the user story project, aims to provide a user-friendly and interactive platform for users to sign in and request icons and report bugs. All right. Of course, you can take a look at the project details. Um, Go to is project summary. This project summary tend to show, okay, how it was done, how it was captured, and so forth. They tend to write a bit about their technical journey. Um, so and they actually made 2 pull requests on the source code. So this is the actual project. You see again a lot of information about the project, how to set up and how to contribute. What you can do, like when you find a project, you look at the issues that already listed. See if you can find a simple issue like share profile using username in the URL. This seems like a simple issue. You can start, okay, double with it, contribute, and see if it's something that you can do. If you write the code, you write the community, and of course, if it's something you're interested in. So yeah, just look at previous projects, play around with it, get introduced more with open source, and once they announce more organizations and the actual project for this year, you can pretty much go on Google Summer Code and do it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at another organization, Palisados. I think it's called. All right, I know it's a Flutter project. Wait, oh, this is Tencent. Sorry. Um, so Flutter. Okay. Okay, so Palisados, which is a Jamaican open source organization. They tend to do Calico, which is similar to Google Summer of Code, but it tends to focus on Jamaican students instead of international students. So last year they didn't keep Calico. They went ahead and pushed the project to Google Summer of Code, and a lot of individual participated in it. So this is pretty much their project. Like they tend to have a list of, each organization tend to have a list of project ideas, which you can actually look at and find out whether one of those ideas match what you're interested in or can do. Of course, looking at the project. Hold on. So this is pretty much a project listing. We have a couple of students who contributed. Right. For example, the primary goal was to improve the design of multilingual support, dark schemes, dark team support. So it's pretty much, a light team, dark team. So that's more on a UI and UX side. So again, this could be like one of those easy small projects that you can contribute to. And each project tend to have like multiple components where different students can contribute to. So for example, if we view the code and so forth, um, hold on, it again, each student at the end of Google Summer of Code write a final submission report about the changes that they've made and so forth. They tend to have like a pull request. This individual did a lot of pull requests, to be honest. And say, let's take a look at one of his pull requests to see like the changes that he made. Oh, this pull request had one single commit and like changes to 11 files. So for example, even though I'm showing a bit of code here, and Dart is pretty much the language that Flutter is built in. So Palisados is a mobile application for church management. And this is pretty much showing the changes that this student made last year in the code. So he's pretty much modifying a Dart file based on like a array of strings for what user last name and first name, and as you can see, it's not a lot of changes he made. And the changes might seem simple, but of course, a simple change in a software might have huge impact, or it may not. But like it's pretty straightforward. For example, this is a route, and it's going on the event info page. Then it's just checking which page the user is looking at, and then based on that page, he then triggers some form of input or event and create. Yeah. So it's again simple code that we wrote and got through and change the information event information page and wait create event page with domain data. I think this was good geared towards tests. And of course, again, if I go to click on the source and you scroll down to the README file, you notice that there's a lot of the instruction how to set up, how to document your code, how to contribute, and so forth. So you can take a look at Google Summer of Code past projects and find ones that you find interesting, and then of course try it out, see how easy it is to contribute. And when the official publication of all of the organizations and projects comes out, you can double check if that organization is a part of Google Summer of Code, that project is a part of Google Summer of Code, and see if you can also apply for it or find similar projects to it. One way you can also find out whether the organization is applying is simply, for example, like simply go to find the organization. For example, I'm going to search for clone. Not sure if they did Google Summer of Code last year, but it don't seem like they did. So you could do go find their community website. So for example, I'm a member of the prone community, and one of the things I tend to do to find out if they're participating is just go to their community website, type in Google Summer of Code, and see if there's any discussion about Google Summer of Code 2022. Okay, so here it is. So they're brainstorming if Google Summer of Code, they should be a part of Google Summer of Code, proposing ideas and discussion around it. So your favorite language, your favorite framework, you can also check that on their community website and see if that's something you're interested in. Before I continue, is there any question, comment, concern anyone has? You can unmute or leave it in the chat.
Hi, Tremaine here, O'Shane. How are you doing?
Hey, Tremaine.
So I mentioned earlier that persons who are not in school can participate. Is there a specific category that experienced developers would fall in, or there's just everybody's on the same level once they enter the Google Summer of Code?
Well, all right. So I should put a disclaimer before I answer. I'm not 100% sure if I'm eligible to answer that 100% correct, but definitely with Stephanie Taylor next week, we can put forward that question to her. However, based on our discussion that we had with her as well as our reading, it's not there's not a specific level a more experienced developer should do, must do, but it's preferred that experienced developer take on more of the larger projects, so they leave room for entry-level developers to take on the smaller projects or the flexible projects, because those projects give more room, more learning experience, more time, and level of understanding for entry-level developers to do. So no, everyone doesn't really put in the same category. It's geared towards what you're interested in, and you apply to those organizations or projects as you wish. But again, it's kind of preferred that it's to lead to smaller projects for entry level, but it's still something experienced developer can do.
All right, thanks for that. So the follow-up question to that, O'Shane, is if there are, so an experienced developer would have to look at the um, the issues and make a judgment, or does the website that you were showing before demarcate the issues that are preferred for experienced versus junior developers?
Okay. So couple of things. So our normal setup, right? Each organization will indicate the project and then indicate the difficulty level. They will say like this is hard, or no, well, officially they say difficult, very difficult, easy, medium, whatsoever, right? Of course, regardless of the difficulty level now, you can take a look at the project, read it, and so forth. So, for example, the first when I looked at the compiler project earlier, normally for me, I think, okay, compiler that takes a lot of understanding of the groundworks and machine language and just compiling code to whether transcribe or whatever. So I wouldn't necessarily say entry level developer would take on that. Even though they can, I would recommend more entry level to do like more mobile UI, UX, or some backend that isn't like deep into understand the whole infrastructure of software development. So it's up to you at the end of the day if this is manageable for you. But what they will do though, they will give you the difficulty level. They'll ask before you apply. You should try to fix one or two issues on your issue tracker. Based on how you fix it, based on your communication with the community, then they'll say, okay, you fix this real well, you communicate effectively, you keep up that, asking question, they give feedback and so forth. And based on that, you most likely get through. So at the end of the day, it's all about how you approach the project, regardless of how difficult it is or not.
All right, thanks, Oshin.
All right. Any other question? All right. So that's a no. All right. So I need a volunteer that is interested in a particular language framework. And we can just take a look at one of the frameworks or projects that was on Google Summer of Code the previous year and see if we can just walk through. Okay, Flutter. So Brandon. Oh,
No Flutter, no Dart. Let us do something. Let us do Java. How about that?
Okay. All right.
Flutter is too easy, guys. Flutter is too easy. I already have a Talawa project. That's the only reason why I'm not. I would love to see something in Java, something in a native language. Because yeah, let's do that. I'm not. Brandon, I'm not cussing you out. I just want to make sure that we do something along the lines of a pure language, so to speak.
Funnily, I'm not really a Java fan, Jermaine. So yeah. All right. Java Pathfinder. This was what 2021. All right. So let's look at the project ideas that they had in 2021. Okay, let me close some of the other tabs. For those who know me, you're supposed to know I'm using a Chromebook, which I get a lot of bash for, but it's my daily driver and it works. So all right. This is Java Pathfinder, right? So on the project, you notice they'll give a brief summary of the project, and indicate, okay, projects and ideas. Of course, if you click on ideas, it will take you to this page. Wait, I wonder if they have like a 2022. Oh, okay, so they don't have a 2022. All right, let me go back. All right, so pretty much you see, okay, they have a list of ideas that they can work on, like JPF infrastructure. Don't know what that is, Jermaine. Symbolic link execution, which I definitely know what that is. Hybrid posting, yeah. So you see a list of projects and then like a project description of what it is. If you notice, it say, okay, this is hard. These are the skills that you need to have. These are the preferred skills and so forth. So when you're looking at the project, it will give you an idea of what are the things you should know. All right, let me see. Okay, so for example, this is a medium. Okay, knowledge of symbolic. Well, please note some of like symbolic pathfinder. It, it I this is not hard. So this is definitely a medium. Sometimes you see words that sound fancy. For example, when I was when I started programming 2011 when I went to UA, and in 2011 I heard this fancy term atomic variable, and I expect it to be this epic thing. And of course, when I learned what atomic theory is within that first semester of UA, I'm like, yes, yeah, it's just simple. It's like, yeah, first name, last name in one string, and you're just making it, separate. Yeah, first name variable separate from last name variable, and that's pretty much atomic variable. So, of course, you should just read and understand what some of these things are, and you realize that, oh, it's easy. Some are, of course, are but again, the project will tell you what's about. All right, so on this, they give you difficult level, and they can you pretty much read and indicate, okay, you need to write test cases, you need to find oh, this is test generator. Hold on. Okay, so with this, this is odd. So it's saying JDF core is essential for JPM, which is Java Virtual Machine, that currently will support Java 8. I'm actually not sure which version Java is at now, but Java 8 has been out for a while. The goal of this project is to make it up to date with the new version of Java 11. Okay, so they're pretty much doing backward compatibility. So in a certain sense, this is kind of a hard medium project because in my head, how I would approach this project, look at the changes that they made in Java 11, understanding how they code it, and then look at how Java 8 is written. Find out, okay, what are some of the restriction or functions that aren't supporting Java 8, and then try to reverse engineer some of the function in Java 11 into Java 8. So I will do some form of decoding to understand the whole infrastructure. So this takes a more infrastructure understanding of Java than just making changes. So that's one thing I'll already consider how much understanding I need to have to make changes to the source code. Of course, they give, for example, you should take a look at issue 274, and this will give you an example of one of the challenges that they're facing and how you can contribute. So for example, there's a branch called Java 10 grader that we use for work to support Java 11. So straight away, you kind of get that, okay, so they're already trying to do that backward compatibility support with Java 10 and 11. So you could take a look at it and see how they do it for Java 10 and see if you could replicate it for Java 8. So straight away you get a more and more understanding of the approach that you can take. And the deeper you read, the deeper you go, the more things get clearer for you of what to do. Okay. Okay. Currently there are 16 unit tests still failing and so forth. So again, another thing, they wrote tests, so that's good. What is the expected output? So you could write those tests for expected output for Java 8, and then try and develop your code to match the test result without cheating. So okay, they give some example of how to help support failing tests for Java 11. And they give some instructions and so forth, show you where the code is breaking, what's happening. For example, you cannot find native Java lang invoke method angle, and then you see the line number and where it's breaking in the Java file. So you get a lot of tips and highlights about what's happening. Another tip about choosing your project, always choose. I don't go for projects that don't have a good community. So when you're choosing a project, ensure that the community is active, responsive, and really can support those mishaps or lack of information that you may have. Because it's if you join a project and then you have no one to really answer those difficult questions or questions that you ask because you don't see it in the documentation, yeah, that's literally where the community come in. And as I mentioned before, you assign 2 to 3 mentors, but those 2 to 3 mentors are not the only ones you can go to. You can literally go on their forum and just ask a question and get feedback. So always choose a project with a really good and active community. Someone, okay, is a part of Google Summer Code. I'll just quickly jump over and check for you first. So again, I'm not sure of the organizations that are going to be a part of this year. It's going to be announced later this year, either later next month or in April. But we can check if they were a part of the previous years. And well, I type in FUS, don't get
Oshin,
yeah.
sorry about that. I should have given a context around push. It's a color, it's a purple color, but it's the operating system that Google is pushing out. So I was wondering if they are trying to use the Google Summer Code to do any kind of development on it. I knew they had when they were speaking about the new operating system that Google is pushing, they wanted help from developers. So I was wondering if Google decided that they wanted to put this as a part of Google Summer Code.
I don't see okay, expanding open source model. I'm not sure. That's something we could ask Stephanie and find out. But based on my knowledge of how Google works, I don't necessarily think they would initially push it out without the first build. Meaning, I think they're more towards building it out internally with their developers, then send it out where people can come and contribute. Because I do see them as a company that love building the infrastructure before putting it out as like a fully open source that people can just contribute to. I'm not sure how far along they are in the development. Funnily, I've heard about the operating system, and I probably should say this. Okay, okay. So even though I used Chrome and Chrome OS and so forth, I'm not necessarily big. I'm a big fan of Chrome OS, but I'm not necessarily a big fan of Google as a as an operating system manufacturer or development company. They're good. So yeah, I'm not going to touch on it further on a Google Summer of Code call, but I can find out more and let you know. Um, but yeah, pretty much like when you look at a project, all of the like ideas, they give you issues that you can look at. They'll give you issues that you can try to resolve. One of the thing that they will do and say to you to find out if it's a good match for you is to just go on the issue tracker, type in bug, find a bug and try to fix it. Depending on how easy it is for you to fix a bug, well, not necessarily how easy, but how you find, the whole approach to fix that bug and the communication with fixing that bug with the community. That's a good way of telling whether this project is for you or not. But I will say that when you choose any projects, again, just search on Google Summer of Code website, check on like how active the community is, check on if it's something that you're passionate about. I'm pretty much passionate about web development, mobile, Laravel, Flutter, and so forth. I know that if I choose a project, I'll be motivated and have that momentum because this is literally my thing. So choose based on that, the active community. And there's one other thing that I wanted to mention. Let me look at the slides. Okay, interest, project scope. Yes, project scope, of course, which I mentioned before. Understanding the project, the difficulty level, what's it about, and so forth. So those are some of the tips that I'll say that you should take when you're considering which open source you should which platform of app development. Um, Platform of app development. Well, you have all right. So, um, Tinel, what do you mean by plat? Are you talking about whether it's the operating system, or you're talking about the framework, whether it's or you're talking about iOS, Android, or so forth? Um, I will say this: most company are going towards cross software development or cross app development. So you find that most are using either React Native or Flutter. However, of course, based on your interest, you can just indicate you want to develop this side or React Native for this platform instead of the entirety. Okay. Again, it depends on the project that you apply. They may have um React Native, Flutter, straight Android, straight iOS. Just find out which project that you're interested in, and if they they have support for one of those platforms. So, for example, I think I can type in iOS. Or the iOS is kind of all right. Mobile. Da, da. Okay, so it might be a bit difficult to find iOS. Okay, here's a iOS. So this, for example, the objective of this project is to develop a new um, sugarizer measure activity which will work on Android, iOS platform and browser. Let's see what the project details are about and the code. Okay. Wow. This is a nice UI. Yeah, it's a very interesting UI. Okay, pull request. So again, the platform depends on the project. So just find out which um platform you're interested. If you're interested in like decide which platform you're interested. If you're Android, search for Android projects. Of course, that Android project might be in React Native or Flutter or straight Java, and then the other language Kotlin. Um, so yeah, so this guy did a lot of pull requests on this project and commits. This project, what is it written again? Um, JavaScript. This look like it's like a React Native application. Um, yeah, yeah, pretty much a React Native application, and it's even work on the Kindle. So they do Linux, Windows, macOS, Android, and iOS. So yeah, so this is a project you could take a look at and then look out for it whether they are doing good summer code 2022. With that said, any other question before we wrap up? We have like 1 to 5 minutes to go. Okay, the other the project, the bigger an impact on your resume. Yes and no. All right. So touching on the resume, which of course Stephanie Taylor will answer and touch on next week. All right. So it's for a smaller project, yes, you definitely can get away with not having a lot of experience. And of course, the other the project is they're going to want to see on your resume some projects that you've worked on in the past. If you worked with the language before, did you work on any similar technology before or still similar concept? But it's not a detailed resume. It's like they tend to ask to just give a 2 page because the 2 page is about one about you how you got introduced to open source, have you ever contributed to open source, and so forth. It's not necessarily a resume per se. It's more towards just you giving an introduction of yourself and your experience with open source, and then you put with some projects that you worked with in the language or with the framework, and then finally you put the project proposal and summary, and as well as a timeline for when you think you're going to complete this project based on the timeline that Google support give. So to quickly touch on Google Summer Code, right, the coding period, it tends to be 3 evaluation period, which of course after the community bonding and so forth, you start to code, you get introduced to your mentors, the mentors show you how to set up this, that, and so forth. And then you in your proposal, it's more like a proposal rather than a resume. And your proposal does the introduction of you. So in your proposal, you state what is the first deliverable that you're going to work on. And of course, the first evaluation will be based on that first deliverable that you mentioned. And then based on the deliverable, you will either pass or fail. If you fail, you don't continue. If you pass, you continue along with the program. They please note they actually pay you funds for each evaluation you pass and deliverable that you contributed to. So it's a nice way of getting recognition, getting some funds, as well as contributing to open source. And pretty much, if you love tech, it's a nice way of just get a full, understanding of an ecosystem of what it takes to build a large base organization software solution. So right, so the second deliverable or the list of deliverables for the second evaluation that will continue. And once you pass the evaluation, you get to the next stage until the final submission, which you end up writing that final report, which you saw a couple of students that I showed did, which talks about your experience, what you've accomplished, what you didn't accomplish, put the pull requests and the changes, and just give a final overview of your thoughts of Google Summer of Code. So that's generally how it's set up. For me, when I did Google Summer of Code, I did it with Clone. Honestly, at the time I was doing final year project at UA. I was doing working for David Bain. Full time. I was also studying for another program, and I was working part time elsewhere for elsewhere. Plus, I was doing Google Summer of Code, and I got through with ease. But again, I was an experienced developer when I did it. So um, I'm not saying that you should try to be, you know, like that when you're doing Google Summer of Code or any projects. It's all based on you managing your time, managing expectation, managing your work life balance, and understand how fast you can get things done. So like someone like Tremaine, of course, Tremaine, I figure as much. You take on other projects and you if of course if you do it. I don't know if there's a upper age limit. I don't think there is. But it's what I'm trying to say is that Google Summer of Code is one of those things that it's not hard. It's not hard to get into. It's all about you trying and preparing and start early. So last year when we tried to push for Google Summer of Code, um, based on I Latifa, you can correct me if I remember wrong or incorrectly. I think it's around 89 applied, um around 30, between 17 and 30 other actual 89 registered for the program. Um Around 18 to 30 individual actually applied after they registered. How much got through? Not much student got through. In fact, no student got through. The reason why is because everyone started to apply for Google Summer of Code literally within a week or 2 weeks of the deadline. So hence is why this year we started early, so we can help prepare you guys for Google Summer of Code, and the application period is actually in April instead of March. So it gives more time to prepare, to understand, this whole open source and how you can contribute, and as well as writing of a proposal. Again, it's not difficult. It's just something that, it takes some time to prepare. Because, you have to, they want to ensure that, yeah, students learn how to contribute, students learn how to code, students learn the value of working in team and get that experience of working with a large team to prepare for that, working environment. Well, not just students, but overall everyone. Um, and it also, they also want to ensure that, um, you know, what you're contributing is of value. If they don't necessarily want to get anyone, and then the start of the program, you hear that the student, dropped out, say they can't do this, they don't want to continue, or they don't know what to do, and so forth. So because of situation like that, some vetting and filtering has to happen. And when I mentored the student that I mentored, we had to fail him because he wasn't literally communicating at all. We didn't know where the project is at. So we got little to no commits from him. So because of that, we couldn't say to Google that, oh, the student did well in our evaluation. So we had to, you know, dropped. We actually gave him a bride first evaluation, and he said that commit more and so forth. But the second evaluation, there wasn't much change. So again, it all based on you. So if you're interested in this or any type of job project or so forth, always understand your own time commitment and how much you can, give. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about your learning curve, it's also geared towards you being accountable for your actions, and how you present yourself as a developer to really produce something that someone is asking for, and that build confidence in yourself and in others to recommend you for others to develop software solutions. So yeah, Jermaine, you can also give on that note on like entry level developer and workflow. I'm going to tag you to, give you 2 cents on that part, and then we can just close off. Oh, Jermaine is not here. Okay. All right. With that said, yes, professionality. All right. So with that said, who else counting the amount of places you work at the same time? I worked at a lot of places, and yeah, just leave it at that. Um, would you say it's ideal for app devs? Well, ideal price for app devs. Uh, I don't think I should answer that question. What would you say? It's because it all depends on the project and the application. So there's no right and wrong answer to this question. But of course, a bare minimum is there. We can talk about that in another session. About pricing. I think we also spoke about it. But like I said, for Google Summer Code, it's not about project pricing. It's about more contribute to open source. And with that said, I'm pretty much going to wrap up and close off here. Latifa, you can go ahead and wrap up.
Hi, are you hearing me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's just. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. As usual, these sessions are going to continue going down for further months. So we do have our information session, our general information session with the Google Program Manager for Google Summer of Code that will be held on Thursday, March 3rd. That's this Thursday coming. So if you have any friends who still haven't heard about the program, who still think that it's not for them, then tell them to come to that session. We will be tackling everything from how the program is set up, how pricing works, how application works, as well as the changes that take place this year. Most prominently, the extension of the end date from August to the end of October, as well as the fact that the program is now open to all persons over the age of 18. So that's this Thursday, March 3rd, for our official Google Summer of Code informational session with the Google Program Manager, Stephanie Taylor. Apart from that, we will have our usual WordPress event coming up in the second week of March. And if you, as usual, if you have any projects that you'd like to demo at our demo days, or anyone who would like to speak at our career days, do reach out to us on our social media. And we're also looking for volunteers to grow the community and run the community more smoothly. O'Shane, should I touch on GS? I will.
Yes.
Okay, so I will definitely be here for the entire year, but I will be taking a step back in September when I start at Goldman Sachs. And so so we are looking for persons to take over the current activities. So if you're interested in volunteering, or if you are interested in working as a program manager for the community, then also reach out to us via our social media. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming again. Do have a wonderful day. Stay safe from COVID.
All right. Take care. I'll drop the link for the community as well as the YouTube page in both the community chat and the job scope. With that said, everyone take care. All the best.